Hey there, everybody. So today I want to just kind of like explain to people what it's like for me when I went schizophrenic. And I guess I'm just gonna start off. So, like, for me, I had, like, I would say at least 5 years, maybe even more, but at least 5 years where I was kind of like losing it, if that makes sense. Like, I was getting more and more unraveled, I think would be a good word for it. This is clinically usually called the prodromal phase of schizophrenia, where it's like cooking and it's developing. It's like a pressure cooker where the pressure is building, right? Now, for me, the way I experienced this was I was relatively normal, like, from the outside of just kind of being confused and lost with some things. But my beliefs were very strange, and I knew they were strange. I knew something strange was happening to me to make me feel this way about the world around me. But I didn't know what it was, and so I started to have these beliefs about, like, this sort of, like, cosmic relationship with, a particular musician. His name was Roger Hodgson. Now, it wasn't like a parasocial, weird, creepy, stalkery thing. It was more like, oh, he did all these things in the past, and they're animating my body now through, like, some sort of cosmic force that I'm not aware of. And I wanted to tell him about this, because he's kind of, if you know anything about Roger Hodgson, he's kind of schizo himself. I know, like, some of the old boomers will get mad at me for saying that, but that dude was totally nuts, but, like, in a good way. I love him. But I was, like, really into him at the time, and I was convinced that there was, like, some sort of cosmic relationship where I was kind of, like, being, animated, I think would be the right word, like, animated like a puppet through it. And, like, another symptom that I had that was really weird during this time was, like, everything that was going on in my life kind of felt like it was choreographed for a film. Like, it felt like I was living in a movie. It was very weird. Like, you know how, like, when you watch a movie, every single step lines up with, like, the soundtrack or some sort of audio track or something, where it's got that very intense alignment in the choreography that you don't really see in real life. That's kind of what my real life felt like all the time, and because I was listening to, Roger Hodgson and Supertramp all the time, there was, like, a 4/4, beat rhythm for a lot of the background of my life at that time. Oh, and I forgot to mention this in the initial recording for this video, but one of the big things I really struggled with too with the Roger Hodgson thing was I started to see his face when I would, like, look at myself in the reflection, but it didn't really stick because he has, like, a really weird nose that I definitely don't have. And yeah, that ended up happening later. And it's kind of funny because during this time, I was trying to meet up with a former friend who's a piece of shit, by the way. I hate you, Josh, just in case you find this video. But I was trying to explain to Josh what I was experiencing. I was trying to say, like, yeah, I'm having these, like, cosmic experiences, because he was really into Neil Peart. And I thought, well, maybe he has the same kind of cosmic connection to Neil Peart, and maybe there's, like, this sort of, like, phenomenon going on where young people are being animated by older people. And instead of being able to open up about that, he went on this crazy, like, Alex Jones rant. And I just remember, like, sitting there in his apartment, like, he's, like, telling me about how he drinks Brain Force every day, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then the next day, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should just give him another chance, like, so we go to his place. It's called Ram's Horn. If you're from Southeast Michigan, you know what a Ram's Horn is. But we go to this Ram's Horn. It's like Denny's. And we're, like, about to talk again, and I'm about to, pop this question about, hey, what if we're, like, cosmically connected to these people or whatever, and he just starts going on about Jordan Peterson, and he's all like, oh yeah, like, the signs and the symbols of Pepe the Frog, they, like, represent, like, the Gooner revolution. I mean, he didn't say that. It was like 2017. Gooner wasn't a word yet, but it still freaked me the fuck out. I was like, what the fuck? How are you crazier than me? So this kind of, because of my social isolation, and because like every person that I wasn't socially isolated to was probably crazier than I was, honestly, I didn't really think like much of it. And eventually, when I went to go see Roger Hodgson live, I actually got to meet him backstage. He's a very cool individual, I will say that, right? Like, he's a millionaire, he's out of touch, whatever. He's crazy. Alright? He just wants everybody to like love each other, and so that they're like in like harmony and shit. Like, his heart is not bad, alright? Let's get that out of the way. And so I got to meet him backstage, and because of that, this whole sort of spiritual journey of me trying to figure out like my relationship to this man on like a cosmic level was like kind of wrapped up, if that makes sense. Like, it kind of resolved itself, and now this whole thing was no longer a mystery or whatever. And as a result of that, it turned out that that whole narrative was really the only thing keeping me stable, right? And so what happened was, at this time, I was working at Blue Cross as a programmer. And the thing about working at Blue Cross as a programmer, excuse me, I'm having hiccups. The thing about working at Blue Cross as a programmer is that you are heavily monitored. And the reason why is because you have access to every single record of information that they are storing on most people in the state. I mean, we're talking over 1 million health records. I had records that I could have records that could potentially have access to like major political or famous figures, for example. I could have records that were people in my past. I could just have access to everything. And as a result, every single thing that your computer was doing that was connected to their systems was logged, right? And they could know if you were querying anything. They knew what you were browsing on the internet. They knew everything, right? I've worked at companies who think they're doing that, and they're not, and it's really funny. But Blue Cross doesn't fuck around. They work in health insurance. HIPAA does not fuck around. And as a result, along with the internal culture, which is kind of like this sort of propagandizing, like, oh, we're doing the right thing, we're doing the best job that we can to provide as much health care to everybody. And it's like, I've heard you people laugh about cutting coverage for mentally ill people in hospitals. Like, I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. Like, I know that's full of shit. And so, you know, when you're in that environment for a long time, it really fucks with you. And this was a big part of what made my condition get so much worse, because by the end of me working there, I was having tics every day, because what was happening was my memory was just falling apart, right? Because I was so paranoid, my memory was just getting shredded. And I would come home, and I would get paranoid that I had said something about what I was trying to do in my spare time. And I would have absolute panic attacks because I thought I said something that eluded potentially what I was doing. By the end of it, I thought they were like monitoring me outside of the workplace, right? And while this was also going on, I was experiencing inside of my head this kind of like, I think the best way to describe it is like, it was like a black hole of chaos. Like, just like imagine you got your workspace in your head, right? You got your thoughts and your feelings and all that stuff, kind of like a computer desktop. Now imagine that there's just this big black scary noise that's just like in your head all the time in the side, and it's growing. It started as a little thing, but by the time I left Blue Cross at the end of the year of 2019, it was like literally incapacitating because it was taking up so much of my space. And so what ended up happening was I ended up like losing it. I genuinely lost it at that job, because like these fucking machines are used to automate people's deaths. You know, it's a killing machine. And I flipped out. I put in my 2 weeks after I had the public flip out, and I had money saved because I was planning on leaving anyway, so I had money saved. I basically threw most of my money at my roommate at the time and said, here's $7,000, don't throw me on the street, thank you. So this is around the period where it actually started to go like really loopy. I would say that I would really kind of started to enter like actual psychotic episodes at this phase. So what happened, and this is like totally just a bunch of circumstances that really lined up really badly. So I, like any good story, it started with me dropping LSD, and that night I was having a lot of emotions about my sister's death. And so I was posting a lot of things, like, kind of unfiltered about suicide and my sister's death and stuff. And then somebody approached me, and this somebody would turn out to be my last ex. I don't want to go into the details about how crazy that story was, but this was the first time she ever contacted me directly, and she told me, while I was tripping on acid, that my work in disability theory, which up to that point had only been, like, just fucking around with video games and not even reading, like, actual disability theory, was going to be incredibly important for the future because of this, like, augmented technology regarding, like, sensory stuff. And, like, this, her telling me this in all this detail and explaining to me how, like, you know, electronics engineers are doing this and, like, evil CEOs are doing that. And, like, just kind of giving me this, like, what appeared to be at the time, like, an inside glimpse into this, like, mysterious world that has always been foreclosed and outside of me, but apparently I was influencing indirectly. And it was, and I don't believe at this point that I was actually influencing it indirectly, but I was going crazy and I was on acid, so it made me feel really fucked up. Like, I felt like it was very fucked up to me that, like, apparently I was, like, really important all of a sudden. That's kind of like how my brain interpreted it. And I had a breakdown again because of that, because I was like, what the fuck is the point of my life? I thought I was just making video games. I thought I was just whatever. And around this time, I was talking with Cooper from the Machinic Unconscious Happy Hour podcast, and he was introducing me to Felix Guattari, Lacan, etc. And I didn't really care that much about the content at the time, because it was just kind of like big brain stuff, and like Anti-Oedipus was more kind of like, oh, they say solar anus. Ooh. You know, that was kind of my attitude at the time. And I had no interest until I found out about Felix Guattari's screenplay, and it just kind of kept coming back to me every time I read about it. Like, the first time I read about it, it just made me sad, because it was like, there's this guy who wanted to make a movie, and it never got made. And so eventually I got a copy of the screenplay. And this was the moment where everything changed, because now remember, I want you to remember, I did not know anything about this fucking man before reading this screenplay. I didn't know anything about him, right? Now I go and read the screenplay, and the thing about the screenplay is it's not amazing. It's kind of like this B-movie. It's kind of has some dorky scenes. It's just obviously amateur hour kind of stuff. But I read it, and I was completely blown away. Like, completely blown away in a way that I cannot describe. And it's funny because I've reread it since then, and it's not mind-blowing now. It was mind-blowing because I was completely schizo, and I didn't even realize how messed up I was at the time that I had read it. And what happened was essentially I had this sort of bizarre breakdown after reading it. I stepped outside and I saw this tree in the middle of the night in February in the distance, and it was like a bolt of lightning. And then all of a sudden, it was like my entire world changed because I saw his face in the trees, and it scared the shit out of me. But it completely rearranged my brain. I don't know how to describe it. It was like that incident made me, like, just completely changed how my brain worked from then on out. It was literally like I didn't feel it like a shock in my brain or anything, but I somehow knew at that point, like, everything shifted. And so what happened was, for about 2-3 months afterwards, I dissociated very heavily, right? I don't remember this period very well. I've mostly figured out what happened through tracking messages and shit. But what happened was I had a dissociative episode where I, like, 100% completely convinced, and not with any sort of doubt in my mind, not even like, oh, I'm just playing and pretending. Like, no, I was 100% convinced that I was, like, possessed or, like, somehow mentally, like, changed into Felix Guattari. Like, I was convinced I was this guy. I started reading about all this shit. I was convinced that I found Gilles Deleuze online, and I was trying to write a book with him. And that was just some random person who was, like, LARPing with me, and they didn't realize I wasn't LARPing. Oh, no. So this went on for, like, 3 months. And something happened. I think it was something to do with COVID. It caused the whole system to collapse, and I kind of came to my senses, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why are there all these projects here? Why does everybody want me to know about this guy? I don't know anything about this guy's theory. I was extremely upset, because I had, like, 5-10 people coming on my ass about this fucking Felix Guattari guy. I didn't know shit about what he was saying. I didn't remember anything that I fucking read in that period. I didn't know anything what I was doing. I am dead serious. And, like, so I'm just like, what the fuck? So, like, I managed to, like, reorient myself over the course of a few days, and I'm feeling kind of like, just, I didn't feel like messed up or anything. I just kind of felt out of it. And then a month later, I start hearing a voice that is convinced that he is Guattari. Now, the thing is that before that period, I did hear voices, but it was always, like, things that I thought that, like, other people heard. Like, I thought it was normal for anxious people to hear voices in their head saying, oh, you suck, and blah, blah, blah. And then I find out that that's a schizo thing, like, 5 years later. I'm like, what? Huh? Anxious people don't hear, like, people calling them names in their head? I thought that was normal. But anyways, but that's not what Felix was. Felix was, like, a very structured identity. He was very stable, and I think that, you know, being borrowed from, like, an external, like, reflective source like that made him a lot more stable than, say, like, a typical schizophrenic voice, right? And I will say this, you know, if I had the ability to pick from the schizo lottery, I think that Felix Guattari would be a pretty good choice. You know, I think that having a psychoanalyst who can tell you that you're literally going crazy at any given time is a good choice. So, the next year or so was spent, like, going between these episodes of dissociation and having these, like, increasingly, like, bizarre beliefs about where did he come from, what is he doing in my head. And I was very resistant to him being in my head. Right? I didn't like him being in my head because he would tell me things like, oh, you and me, we're the same, and I'm going to be taking over your body, and it was very uncomfortable, right? I look back at that now, and I realize that a lot of what he was saying was actually, like, almost like my brain trying to tell me things about what was happening to me, but, like, unable to express it any other way. But at the time, it's really terrifying when you have a figure in your head who you're convinced is there telling you, yeah, well, your time's over, it's my time now to take over your body, I have a lot more important things to do with it. And God, you know what the worst part about it was? Everyone liked him more than me. Everyone thought he was more charismatic, more interesting, more sexy, more intelligent, while I was just kind of, like, falling apart. I think a good way to describe how it works in real life is it's like, I'm very dysfunctional, actually. It's very noticeable, especially when it gets really bad. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, then he's working normally again, and he's great. That's what it looks like in real life. It's very noticeable, and it's very upsetting, because, like, obviously I don't want to be that guy, and it's taken me 5 years to even come out about being that guy, because, like, obviously I don't want to upset other people in this community. I don't want to go around and be like, yup, I'm the king. Like, that's not even how it works in my head, but like, in my head, obviously, it's more like part of a rhizome kind of thing. Like, that's the logical way to look at it, I mean, considering the content. But, yeah, and this went on for, like, a year or so, until, it got a lot worse. It got a lot worse in June of 2021, and what happened was, I kept resisting this sort of system that had existed, right? And, he kept warning me, like, don't do that. And essentially what happened was, because I didn't accept, like, you know, a sort of stability from this system, it just flew into pieces. It was terrifying. It's so hard to explain and describe, but basically what happened was, essentially within 90 minutes, I went from what I would consider relatively normal and functional to just completely psychotic, like terrifyingly psychotic, like hearing things in the walls, hearing things in the sink and the what do you call it, the shower. I was like convinced people were hiding in like the fridge and stuff, and there was like this whole entire like group of like evil people who were like broadcasting to my brain, were trying to like fucking like take over me and shit. It literally just flew apart. It was terrifying. And then after I figured out that the evil people don't actually have control over my brain, it shifted from this very paranoid narrative towards a very religious narrative based in like good and evil, and seeing these like binaries everywhere and having angels talk to you and stuff. Yeah, so something I remembered while I was editing this was like, to describe how fucking weird and surreal it was, like, it felt like there were two kinds of angels. There was like the big ones that would talk to you directly, but there were all of these like little microscopic things that were like flowing around everywhere. Like everything was the flow of these fucking like little like semiotic angels. It was so weird. And I say semiotic because they literally were like these like weird abstract signifying beings that were like associated with like divinity. And then like I remember there were several times where like I went to sleep and I woke up and I literally was, I guess my brain still thought I was dreaming, because like it was like I was not even in reality anymore. Like when I was more alert and awake, at least during this period, I could at least tell where like my house was and stuff, but there were periods where it was literally like I woke up and it was like I was floating in just space, surrounded by these things moving around like everywhere. And like I remember like sensing them in like the water, so like there was like billions of them in the water. I don't know how to describe it. It was like just billions of them just everywhere. It was like I could just see the flows of everything. And they were embodied by these little angels. And they basically, what they told me to do is they told me to like build a temple. And they were like trying to convince me that there was like all this weird evil going on around me. Like I remember seeing like a bird that I thought like murdered its babies, but really what happened was the father had died, and so the mother was carrying, it was like a robin, American robin. So for our European viewers, it's more like a blackbird than a what you would be associating with a robin. But yeah, what happened was the father somehow died and the mother was doing double duty, and for some reason my brain just interpreted that like, oh my god, she murdered her babies. But that didn't happen at all. It was crazy. Like that's how intense it was. Like that with everything for like just 2 weeks straight, and it wouldn't stop. There was like a period where it was just like I was like I gained some kind of self-awareness and realized like, holy crap, like is this my life now? Am I just going to be like this disciple of like a god that I'm the only one who knows exists? Like what the fuck is going on? It was genuinely like, yeah, I just wanted to make sure I added that part because like just to explain how fucking nuts it was. And the thing was is that I did come down from that initial explosion, and like I think the best way to describe what it felt like was it did not feel like any drug I've ever taken. I've taken, LSD, I've taken shrooms, I'm obviously a toker. None of that is anything like what I felt like. It felt like driving off a cliff. It was just like shredding the entire time. It was like the most metal intense experience I ever had in my life, and it lasted for like 2 weeks and nothing was done because the people around me are fucking morons. But anyways, so after two weeks, it kind of calmed down into this sort of steady psychosis where, like, I was not functional in any way. Actually, that's a lie. I was functional in one way, and that was with video editing, believe it or not. So, like, when I would try to record those recordings from 2021, I keep those videos up because even though they're some of them have mistakes, and some of them have, like, incomprehensible segments, they're a good like window into like what was going on in that point in my life. And like I was so dysfunctional that, like, every morning I would wake up and I would have I would feel like the psychotic symptoms, which kind of feel like your brain is just charging up, and as a result, you mixing up stuff everywhere, everything's moving, everything's, like, talking to you, it's very disorienting. But it happens, like, maybe an hour or two after you wake up, and it just keeps going all day. You have, like, short breaks, and then it comes back. And some mornings I would wake up and I was, like, given a task by, like, some kind of schizo being. Other mornings, usually those tasks were, like, doing a painting, doing some sort of representational painting or something. I kept getting these, like, messages to, like, try to build a temple, which I was very confused about. But then I realized what it really means is, like, a user interface, which is what made me realize that user interfaces are temples, they're temples, and that's what Temple OS is, It really gave me some special insight there. And then, but yeah, like, I was just completely unreachable for, like, 6 months. They just let it go like that. And the thing is that most people would have taken me in the previous phase. It doesn't usually get as bad as I got it, right? It was a really upsetting time because I started having constant visual hallucinations, and I knew at that point that I was going to struggle with visual hallucinations for the rest of my life. I think I actually don't suffer from very many auditory hallucinations. When I hear voices, they're in my head, but I don't usually hear things, and I suspect it might actually be partially because I trained myself before I went schizophrenic on echolocation and how sound propagates, like, not necessarily scientifically, but intuitively, right? And as a result, I think my brain just knows that it's not, like, a sound, because it doesn't sound like a sound, if that makes sense, right? So I don't usually have auditory hallucinations, but I do have visual hallucinations, and they started with this, and it sucked, because I realized, yeah, I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life. It's not that bad now, but back then it was constant. It was like, I don't even think I would have felt safe driving in those conditions. So what ended up happening was I was sent to the hospital eventually when they just could not deal with it anymore. They just didn't want to deal with a crazy person saying every morning that they had a vision from God, and they had to... And there was, like, the episodes where I was, like, screaming, or episodes where I was, like, hitting myself, or episodes where I was, like, pacing around for hours. And, like, I went to the hospital, and it was like putting on the brakes, right? And I want to stress that the hospital visit wasn't, like, it wasn't violent or anything, but it was highly inadequate. I think that's the way I would describe it. Like, the only reason why I was even able to stop had nothing to do with anything that was really going on in the hospital. It had everything to do with the medication just slowing everything down, and kind of, like, giving me a moment to, like, get my bearings, I think is a good way to describe it. And so, like, I finally, like, started to recover in the following months, and it was just, like, really hard for me, because it was, like, you started to have this realization that, like, holy shit, the last 18 months of my life, I've literally been living in this bizarre fantasy, right? And now I'm on medication, I'm not hearing any of the voices, I'm not seeing any of the things anymore, I'm just having my former anxiety issues and depression issues or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay. So that's how I convinced myself to get a job, which is funny. I'm not going to talk about it in this video, but I got hired at a complete clown show hack job in the auto industry. I found out later that, like, every little company in the auto industry is like this. But, like, that's why they didn't take me seriously, and they thought I was insane for saying that they should not have, like, SQL injection on the front end. But, as a feature, not a bug, by the way. But yeah, so, I worked at that place for 2 years, and it was very stressful for me because, they were a very abusive workplace. And during that time, I struggled with yearly episodes. So, like, what would happen is that in the summer, which I believe are triggered by climate and humidity conditions, I would start to have, like, episodes, and it kept breaking through my medication. Like, the first time they increased my Abilify from 5 milligrams to 10, And then they told me they were going to switch my medication, and then my psychiatrist literally ghosted me. Like, yeah, she wouldn't even refill my meds that I already had. It was crazy. I had to literally... I was already wanting to get off of them because I didn't like how they felt, but, like, I had to get off of them. Like, what was I going to do? She literally ghosted me. But, yeah, so, like, I would have these, like, breakout episodes. And there was, like, one breakout episode where I realized, like, wait a second. The reason why I'm seeing all the fucking angels and hearing their voices and shit is because I don't want to believe in Felix, because I was scared of Felix. But Felix is a lot more manageable than a assemblage of 27 angels telling you random shit. So I was like, well, you know, maybe I should try believing in Felix again. And what do you know? He comes back and then the angels go away. And so nowadays, what I suffer with is kind of complicated. It's kind of like a cyclical thing throughout the year. So, like, the time of year that I'm in now is kind of more like my down phase, my negative phase. And what I've really noticed this time of year is that I really struggle with connecting with my emotions and my feelings. And it's not like I'm not emotionally intelligent kind of situation, but more so like it literally feels like they're not my feelings anymore, if that makes sense. I can feel them in my body. I can feel the hormones rushing through me. But my brain doesn't register it as, like, fear or sadness or anger. Like, my body will react to it, but I don't feel it, like, the same way I used to. I don't feel pleasure the same way I used to. I mean, I can still enjoy, like, you know, sexual things, but, like, just... it's really hard for me to learn. It's really hard for me to have that positive reinforcement because the machine that does that is kind of broken. I can manage through, like, essentially tactile muscle memory kind of things, right? I need to kind of, like, integrate it into my body now because my brain just doesn't compensate for it enough. The memory issues are probably one of the worst. This is, like, something that people don't even think about when they think about psychosis, but the memory issues. Oh, Lord, you don't remember anything. And it's not even like, oh, it's all confusion and delusion. No, you just don't remember things. It's like I've got, like, a fucking goldfish memory. And anybody who's lived with me notices it. It's really bad. It was not this bad before. I'm pretty sure if I actually did, like, a test, it would be a notable decline. And I'm absolutely certain that the episode that triggered the visual hallucinations were the responsible cause for that. Just, like a lot of, like, subtle, like, cognitive functions just break down. And, like, just because I can manage it well enough where, like, people aren't seeing it online doesn't mean that it's not happening. It doesn't mean that it's not a challenge. It doesn't mean that it's not difficult. It means that you don't see it, right? And that's not to say that I can't handle some stupid bullshit from some, like, stupid YouTubers who have never actually talked to schizophrenic before. But rather that, like, the actual challenges that I go through in an everyday life are things that you probably have never even imagined before. You know, when I'm in a positive episode, like, you may think that, oh, well, the real threat is, like, having a hallucination that makes you run into traffic. No, the real danger is me, you know, getting over-enthusiastic, being oblivious of my environment, and walking into traffic. And I'm not walking into traffic because I saw, like, a fucking, like, attracting hallucination. I fucking walked into traffic because my brain didn't register the danger around me. It's like I have a narrow view of awareness. I don't really understand everything that's going on around me. I'm very oblivious as a person as a result of this. I've always been a bit oblivious, but, like, it's to a level where it's, like, genuinely concerning at this point. Like, I genuinely am just like, what the fuck's going on around me? So, yeah, and I would say that that's probably the thing that's put my life in the most danger in the last few years. Like, I've had multiple incidents where I've run right into traffic. And it's not because, like, I'm freaking out or anything. It's literally just because I'm not registering the danger. Right? Because my brain just doesn't process those things as well anymore. And yeah, and it's like, yeah, I still get hallucinations and voices, and I still deal with the funny man in my head. I mean, he's more of an asset than anything. I would never change him at this point. Like, it's so convenient having a guy who can just tell you, hey, you're going crazy right now. I think like 99% of schizos wish they fucking had that. I lucked out with the schizo lottery. But, yeah, and like, let's talk about like word issues too, like language issues, because like that's brought up quite a bit by certain people. With language, I would say that like what I experience is that there's like usually I have a steady ability to produce language after recovering, but sometimes this breaks down, and sometimes I can't speak. Like, I know what I want to say, but I can't form the words for it. Sometimes I can't even form the words for it. Sometimes it's just like I can't speak, I just go nonverbal. And like it's more so like the systems that produce speech are breaking down. I don't usually have issues with like confusing speech. Like the problem with that diagnostic criteria is that I feel like a lot of the times the confusing speech is more like a schizophrenic's tendency to express things in a very kind of like weird artsy way. Like it's kind of more just a natural tendency rather than a symptom. But like there are times where that reaches a point where it's literally not making any sense anymore, and that's because there's some, to me at least, that's how I experience it, is that there's a misalignment in your brain with what you're trying to say and how things work in your brain as to what other people are expecting. So like these words will be rearranged in the wrong order, or it will just come out completely wrong, the wrong words. That's a big thing that happens. Like a lot of people think that word salad is like indication that there's nobody in the home, but instead it should really be an indication that the speech mechanisms that allow that person to communicate clearly are not home, right? Like you can still, I'll just be blunt with people, you're aware of everything that happens when you're going crazy. You don't remember all of it because your memory gets shredded, but you're absolutely fucking aware of it, and I know I was aware of what I was experiencing, even if I don't remember a lot of it. Because everything that I do remember, I remember in just crystal detail. You know, like I remember, you know, experiencing these phenomenon where I was like receiving messages from halfway across the world telling me to write things on pieces of paper because they were telling me that I had become a computer printer. Like I remember that very clearly. It's just that it's so chaotic that you're not going to remember most of it. But that doesn't mean you don't feel it. It doesn't mean you don't experience it. And I just hope that me talking about this a little bit more openly makes people realize that, like, yes, there are the hallucinations and delusions, but it is such a misunderstanding to just interpret this as like, oh, they just don't know what's going on around them. They're just crazy. Like, no, it's more like, I mean, it's a very overstimulating, confusing experience. But it doesn't mean that you're not aware of anything. It doesn't mean you don't realize that people are being mean or trying to take advantage of you. You just don't realize it right away because you're so confused with everything else. Like, you're dealing with a bunch of bullshit. You know? So, anyways, I hope that this makes people understand things a lot better. And something to keep in mind as well is that even though, like, after recovery, there's still a lot of symptoms and struggles, people who have recovered from a psychotic, extended schizophrenic episode are not necessarily stupid. They're not having a freak out. You know, I have a hearty laugh. I'm not like going crazy every time I have my hearty laugh. That's just my laugh. That's my natural laugh. It's always been like that. And in real life, a lot of people really enjoy that laugh. They don't see it as a sign of mental illness. I think online is the only time I've ever seen people say that, you know, and it's just like people who have recovered often can just live many parts of their lives like they used to. It's just that they also have parts of their brain that work differently now. And that's the reason why I do, you know, this stuff with Felix Guattari and writing instead of doing my former career. My brain just doesn't work the same way. And now I found a new niche in a new world. And really the struggle I think a lot of people suffer from is that they're not able to find a place. So, anyways, just a little bit of food for thought. I thought people might be interested in this, so